Truth Be Told Project.
Welcome to the Truth Be Told Project. This is the space where we stop performing, stop pretending, and start telling the truth about the lives we're actually living. Not the version we post, not the version we explain to people, not the version we built to make everybody comfortable. The real one, the quiet one, the one we wrestle with when the house is silent, the phone is down, and nobody needs anything from us for 5 minutes. And today, I want to talk about something that a lot of people feel but don't always have language for. That strange feeling where your life looks successful, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to you. You have the job, you have the degree, you have the responsibilities, you have the calendar full of things that are supposed to matter. You're doing what people told you grown people do. You're handling business. You're showing up, you're making things happen, but somewhere underneath all of that, there's this quiet question: is this really me? Not because you're ungrateful, not because you're lazy, not because you don't appreciate what you have, but because something inside you knows the difference between a life you chose and a life you inherited. And sometimes the life we call success is really just obedience dressed up as ambition. So today, we're talking about what I call the invisible architecture of achievement. The hidden structure underneath the life you're building, the internal script, the borrowed metrics, the social expectations, the digital signals, the family pressure, the cultural programming, the stuff that quietly teaches you what to want before you ever get the chance to ask yourself what you actually value. And I want to start with a story. I want you to imagine a woman named Naomi. Naomi is 34 years old. She has a good job. Not perfect, but good. The kind of job people respect when she says it out loud. The kind of job that makes older relatives nod their heads like, okay, she's doing something with her life. She's doing her thing. She has her own apartment, nice enough furniture, a car that's almost paid off, a closet full of clothes that make her look more confident than she feels. She has a calendar full of meetings, appointments, deadlines, brunches, family obligations, and reminders she keeps snoozing because there's always something else demanding her attention. On paper, Naomi is doing fine. She's doing good. Actually, more than fine. She is the person people call when they need advice. She is the responsible one, the dependable one, the strong one, the one who always figures it out. At work, she's professional. At home, she's helpful. With family, she's available. With friends, she's supportive. Online, she looks composed. She knows how to take the picture. She knows how to write the caption. She knows how to make progress look clean. But here's what nobody sees. Every morning before she gets out of bed, Naomi stares at the ceiling for a few seconds longer than she should. Not because she doesn't have things to do. She has plenty to do. And that's the problem. Her life is full, but full and fulfilling are not the same thing. She reaches for her phone, checks the notifications, emails, messages. A friend just got engaged. A former classmate just bought a house. Someone from college posted about a promotion. Another woman she follows is launching a business. Somebody is traveling, somebody is glowing, somebody is announcing something, somebody is becoming something. And Naomi doesn't hate them. That's not what this is. She's not sitting there bitter, wishing everybody would fail, but every post feels like a tiny measurement, a quiet comparison, a little whisper. Are you behind? Should you be further? Is this enough? Are you enough? So she gets up, makes coffee, checks her reflection, puts on the version of herself the day requires, and she performs competency. She performs stability. She performs ambition. She performs being fine. Then one evening, after a long day, she pulls into her apartment complex and just sits in the car, engine off, keys in her hand, bag in the passenger seat, phone face down. She is too tired to go inside. Not physically tired only, soul tired. The kind of tired sleep doesn't fully fix. And without planning to, she says out loud, I don't even know if I wanted this. And that scares her because nothing is technically wrong. She's not in crisis. She's not losing everything. She's not failing. And that almost makes it worse because when your life is falling apart, people understand why you're unhappy. But when your life looks successful, you start questioning whether you even have permission to feel unsettled. Naomi is not failing. That's the tension. Naomi is achieving. She is doing the things. She is checking the boxes. She is becoming the kind of person people praise. But privately, she feels like an imposter in her own life. Not an imposter at work, not an imposter because she lacks skill, an imposter in the deeper sense. Like she is living inside a life built from other people's assumptions, a life that looks right from the outside but feels misaligned from within. And maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you know what it feels like to be complimented for a version of yourself you secretly feel trapped inside. Maybe you know what it feels like to be called strong when what you really feel is exhausted. Maybe you know what it feels like to be praised for being responsible when responsibility was never a personality trait for you. It was a survival strategy. Maybe you know what it feels like to succeed in a direction you never consciously chose. And that is where we're going today because Naomi's problem isn't that she lacks discipline. It isn't that she lacks ambition. It's it isn't even it isn't that she needs another productivity hack, another vision board, another morning routine, another 5-step system to become her best self. Naomi's problem is deeper. She has been building on invisible architecture, and nobody taught her to inspect the blueprint. Let's start here. Most people think achievement begins with goals. I don't think that's the whole truth. Goals matter, discipline matters, consistency matters, work ethic matters. But before any of that, achievement begins with architecture. There's always a structure underneath what you are chasing. There are beliefs underneath your goals. There are fears underneath your ambition. There are values underneath your schedule. There are wounds underneath some of your drive. There are old family systems underneath some of your definitions of success. There are social rewards underneath some of your decisions. There are cultural scripts underneath the life you think you freely chose. And that's what makes this so tricky, because most of us don't experience these scripts as scripts. We experience them as normal. We experience them as reality. We experience them as this is just what people do. You graduate, you get a job, you move up, you get married by a certain age, you buy a house, you have kids, you make more money, you look successful, you stay busy, you don't complain, you keep pushing, you prove people wrong, you make your family proud, you become the kind of person nobody can look down on. Now, hear me clearly. None of those things are automatically wrong. A career is not wrong. Marriage is not wrong. Money is not wrong. Buying a house is not wrong. Building stability is not wrong. Wanting respect is not wrong. The problem is not the thing. The problem is when you never got to ask whether the thing was actually yours. Because a borrowed dream can still produce real achievement. A borrowed dream can still pay bills. A borrowed dream can still impress people. A borrowed dream can still get applause. A borrowed dream can still make your family proud, but it cannot give you alignment. And that's what Naomi's feeling. She has momentum, but not clarity. She has progress, but not peace. She has approval, but not ownership. Her life is moving, but she is not sure who chose the direction. That's why I call this the invisible architecture of achievement. Because long before Naomi made choices, something was already shaping what she believed choices were available to her. Her family shaped it, her peers shaped it, her neighborhood shaped it, her school shaped it, her culture shaped it, her trauma shaped it, her feed shaped it, her pain shaped it. And if she never slows down enough to examine the structure, she may spend the next 20 years decorating a house she never designed. That's what we have to talk about. Here's the phrase I want to give you: the social proxy. The social proxy is the version of success you pursue because other people have taught you to want it. It is an unexamined internal script that mimics the desires of your peers, your parents, your family system, your culture, your industry, your social media feed, or the people whose approval you still crave. The social proxy says, people like me are supposed to want this. It doesn't always ask, do I want this? It asks, will this make me look like I'm doing well? It asks, will this prove I'm not a failure? It asks, will this make them respect me? It asks, will this make me safe? It asks, will this keep me from being judged? It asks, will this make me feel less behind? That is a very different question. And when you live long enough under a social proxy, you can confuse approval with purpose. You can confuse achievement with direction. You can confuse being needed with being loved. You can confuse being busy with being valuable. You can confuse being impressive with being whole. Naomi's social proxy did not appear overnight. It was installed slowly. Her mother used to say things like, you need to be able to take care of yourself. Don't depend on nobody. Now, there is wisdom in that, especially if her mother had been hurt, especially if her mother had been abandoned, especially if her mother had to survive things nobody helped her carry. But sometimes advice becomes identity architecture. So Naomi learned early being safe means being self sufficient, being respected means never needing too much, being successful means never giving anybody the chance to pity you. Then her family praised her for being mature, for not causing trouble, for getting good grades, for helping around the house, for making responsible choices, for being the one they didn't have to worry about. And again, that sounds good, but there is a hidden cost to being the child nobody worries about. Sometimes you become an adult who doesn't know how to admit you're not okay. Sometimes you become an adult who confuses silence with strength. Sometimes you become an adult who performs competence so well that even you stop noticing your own exhaustion. Naomi's peers shaped it too. In college, everybody was chasing something: internships, grad school, relationships, networking, lifestyle, travel, branding. Everybody was building a version of themselves. And Naomi learned that if she wanted to be taken seriously, she had to keep up. Then social media intensified it. Every achievement became visible. Every milestone became content. Every announcement became evidence. Engagement photos, baby showers, new jobs, new homes, soft life aesthetics, entrepreneurship reels, fitness transformations, vacation recaps, career wins, date nights, brand deals, morning routines. And again, none of this is wrong by itself. People are allowed to celebrate their lives. But when your inner compass is already underdeveloped, other people's celebrations can quietly become your instructions. That's the social proxy. It is not always someone directly controlling you. Sometimes it is more subtle than that. Nobody has to force you. They just have to reward certain versions of you long enough that you start abandoning the rest. Why this hits different for people from dysfunction. Now, this is where I want to slow down because this idea hits differently when you grew up in dysfunction. When you grow up in a stable environment, you may have had room to explore, room to be curious, room to ask questions, room to make mistakes without feeling like your whole identity was on the line, room to want something different, room to disappoint people and still feel loved. But when you grew up around instability, addiction, abandonment, emotional neglect, chaos, or constant pressure, your internal world develops differently. You may not develop a compass first. You may develop a radar first. A compass tells you where you're going. A radar tells you what is happening around you. A compass is about direction. A radar is about detection. And many of us became experts at radar. We learn how to read a room. We learn how to detect tension. We learn how to sense disappointment. We learn how to predict moods. We learn how to adjust our tone. We learn how to become easy to deal with. We learn how to not ask for too much. We learn how to become whatever kept the peace. We learn how to achieve because achievement gave us leverage. It gave us identity. It gave us a way to be seen. It gave us a way to escape shame. It gave us a way to prove we were not like what happened to us. For Naomi, achievement was never just achievement. It was protection. It was proof. It was armor. It was a way of saying, you may have ignored me, but you won't dismiss me. You may have underestimated me, but you won't embarrass me. You may have abandoned me, but you won't define me. And listen, there is power in that. Some ambition born from pain can get you out of places that were destroying you. Sometimes proving people wrong can give you the fuel to survive seasons where encouragement was nowhere to be found. I'm not here to shame that. Some of us needed that fuel. But here's the truth. That fuel, the fuel that helps you escape one season, may not be the fuel that helps you build the next one. At some point, proving people wrong becomes a prison because your life is still being organized around them. They may not be present anymore. They may not have access anymore. They may not have a say anymore. But if your choices are still centered around proving them wrong, they're still shaping the blueprint. That is hard to admit because it can look like independence. It can look like strength. It can look like boss energy. It can look like discipline. But underneath it, you may still be asking an old wound for direction. That's what Naomi had to confront. She wasn't just chasing success. She was chasing a version of success that promised she would never feel small again. But success cannot heal the wound that selected the goal. It can only decorate it. And many people are living decorated wounds. Nice job, nice apartment, nice clothes, nice title, nice brand, nice relationship, nice image. But underneath the decoration, there's still a part of them asking, am I safe now? Am I enough now? Do they see me now? Can I finally rest now? That is why this conversation matters, because misalignment is not always laziness. Sometimes misalignment is what happens when your survival strategies become your life plan. Now, let's talk about the world we live in, because the social proxy used to come mostly from your family, your neighborhood, your school, your church, your community, or your workplace. Now it follows you everywhere. It lives in your phone. It lives in your feed. It refreshes every few seconds. It studies what gets your attention. It learns what makes you compare. It learns what makes you feel behind. It learns what makes you insecure. It learns what version of success keeps you watching. And then it keeps serving you more of it. That means your desires are being shaped in real time, not always by wisdom, not always by values, not always by truth, but by repetition, by visibility, by engagement, by social reward, by what gets attention. And attention is not the same thing as truth. Let me say that again. Attention is not the same thing as truth. Just because a life is highly visible does not mean it is deeply valuable. Just because something gets engagement does not mean it deserves your imitation. Just because someone looks fulfilled does not mean they are free. And the feed doesn't give you that context. It gives you the highlight, the image, the outcome, the aesthetic, the announcement, the finished product. It rarely shows you the cost. It rarely shows you the emptiness. It rarely shows you the anxiety. It rarely shows you the debt. It rarely shows you the conflict. It rarely shows you the private breakdown. It rarely shows you the compromises. So Naomi scrolls and subconsciously absorbs metrics. She absorbs what a social woman is supposed to look like. She absorbs what kind of body gets praised, what kind of relationship gets celebrated, what kind of home signals maturity, what kind of career signals intelligence, what kind of lifestyle signals freedom, what kind of confidence signals worth. And before long, she isn't just living her life, she's measuring it all day, every day, against people she barely knows, against images that may not even be honest, against timelines that don't account for her story, against standards that were never designed with her healing in mind. And the dangerous part is this: borrowed metrics don't always feel borrowed. They feel like pressure. They feel like urgency. They feel like motivation. They feel like I need to get my life together. But sometimes what we call getting our life together is really just trying to make our life look acceptable to an audience we never consciously chose. That's why Naomi feels uneasy. Her unease is not random, it's data. That unease is telling her something. It is saying, you are moving, but you're not listening. You are achieving, but you are not aligned. You are becoming impressive, but you are losing contact with yourself. That feeling is not something to numb, it's something to investigate. Here's one of the great traps of modern life: the world rewards speed more than reflection. Move fast, respond fast, build fast, scale fast, post fast, decide fast, grow fast, promote fast, optimize fast, heal fast, become fast. Everything is urgent. Everything is content. Everything is a metric. Everything is a deadline. Everything is a comparison. So people like Naomi get caught in high speed momentum. And momentum can feel like purpose when you are too busy to ask better questions. That is dangerous because speed can hide misalignment. You can be moving so fast that you don't realize you are going in the direction you never chose. You can be so productive that you never notice you are building a life around an old fear. You can be so praised that you never notice you are performing for people who don't actually know you. You can be so responsible that you never ask whether responsibility has become a cage. This is why some people reach milestones and feel nothing. They thought the promotion would do it. They thought the relationship would do it. They thought the house would do it. They thought the money would do it. They thought the body would do it. They thought the platform would do it. They thought the degree would do it. Then they get there and the silence is terrifying because the thing they chased gave them a result, but not a self. That is the difference between achievement and alignment. Achievement says, I accomplished the thing. Alignment says, the thing actually belongs to me. And those are not the same thing. Naomi had accomplished things, but She was beginning to realize she didn't know which of those things belonged to her and which ones were built to answer someone else's expectations. That's why she felt like an imposter in her own life, not because she was fake, but because parts of her life had been built from inherited scripts. And when your life is built from inherited scripts, you can perform it well and still feel unknown inside it. So let's disrupt the default. Here's the truth: success does not prove alignment, success proves effort, success proves consistency, success proves discipline, success proves strategy, success proves endurance. But success does not automatically prove that the goal was yours. You can win at a game you never wanted to play. You can master a role that is slowly suffocating you. You can become impressive in a direction that disconnects you from yourself. You can build a life that other people admire and still feel homeless inside it. That is not weakness. That is information. That is your inner life telling the truth after years of being ignored. And here's another disruption. Sometimes the emptiness after achievement is not a sign that you need more. Sometimes it is a sign that you need to stop chasing what was never yours. That's hard in a culture addicted to more money, more status, more followers, more productivity, more visibility, more optimization, more proof. But sometimes more is not the answer. Sometimes the answer is ownership. To pause long enough and ask, who gave me this definition of success? When did I start believing this mattered? What am I afraid would happen if I stopped chasing this? Who would I disappoint if I became honest? What version of me I have abandoned to maintain this image? Those are not easy questions, but they are necessary questions, because if a script was installed, a script can be inspected. If a script can be inspected, a script can be challenged. And if a script can be challenged, a life can be redesigned. That's the hope. We are not stuck with every blueprint we inherited. We are not obligated to build a whole life around old survival instructions. We can honor where we came from without letting it define every room in the house. We can appreciate the ambition that helped us survive while admitting we need deeper fuel now. We can stop drifting and start designing. So, how do you know if you're living from your own values or from a social proxy? I want to give you a few questions. Not quick questions, not cute questions, real questions. The kind you may need to sit down with, the kind you may need to journal through, the kind that may make you uncomfortable before they make you free. Question 1: if nobody could see this achievement, would I still want it? Not if nobody applauded, not if nobody congratulated you, not if nobody liked the post, not if nobody from your past found out, not if it didn't make anyone jealous. Would you still want it? Because some goals are only desirable when they come with witnesses. And that doesn't automatically make them bad, but it does mean you need to know what you're actually chasing. Are you chasing the experience or are you chasing the announcement? Are you chasing the work or are you chasing the image? Are you chasing a life or are you chasing the proof? Question 2. What part of my ambition is driven by curiosity and what part is driven by something? Curiosity says, I want to explore this. Proving says, I need them to see me. Curiosity says, this feels meaningful. Proving says, this will finally shut them up. Curiosity says, I feel drawn to this. Proving says, I can't let them think they were right about me. Again, proving can be powerful, but it is expensive because proving keeps your nervous system attached to the people who wounded you. At some point, you deserve a life that is not organized around the audience of your pain. Question 3. If I stop chasing this tomorrow, whose approval would I be afraid of losing? That question is a flashlight. It reveals the invisible audience, your parents, your friends, your ex, your old classmates, your industry, your followers, your church community, your family system, the people who doubted you, the people who ignored you, and the people you secretly want to impress. Sometimes we say, I'm doing this for me. But if stopping were to make us feel ashamed because a certain person might judge us, then maybe we are not as free as we think. Question 4. When did I first learn that this kind of success would make me valuable? That one goes deep because some of us learned very early that love was connected to performance. You got attention when you achieved. You got praise when you were useful. You got peace when you didn't have needs. You got approval when you were easy. You got respect when you were impressive. So now, as an adult, you may not be chasing success. You may be chasing the feeling of finally being worth staying for. That deserves tenderness, not shame. Because once you see the root, you can stop judging the fruit. You can understand why you've been so driven. You can understand why rest feels unsafe. You can understand why slowing down feels like failure. You can understand why you keep choosing lives that exhaust you but impress other people. Understanding does not excuse staying stuck, but it gives you a compassionate place to start. Now, let's make this practical because awareness without handles can become another form of rumination. So, here's what I want you to do this week. Take out a notebook, a piece of paper, or open a note in your phone. Create 2 columns. On the left side, write things I genuinely want. On the right side, write things I feel expected to want. Then start listing. Don't perform, don't edit, don't try to sound deep. Don't write what you think you're supposed to write. Tell the truth. Maybe on the left, you write, I want peace. I want creative freedom. I want healthier relationships. I want a slower life. I want a meaningful job, or I want meaningful work. I want to feel at home in my own body. I want to stop being afraid of disappointing people. I want a life that feels honest. Then maybe on the right, you write, I feel expected to want a bigger title. I feel expected to want marriage by a certain age. I feel expected to want kids on a certain timeline. I feel expected to want a house. I feel expected to always be available to family. I feel expected to monetize every talent. I feel expected to prove I'm not behind. I feel expected to be strong all the time. And when you see it on paper, something starts to separate. The fog lifts a little. You begin to notice where your life is aligned and where it has been outsourced. That's the first handle. The second handle is this: pick one thing from the expected to want column and ask, what would change if I stopped using this as a measurement of my worth? Not what would change externally, internally. Would you breathe differently? Would you rest differently? Would you create differently? Would you date differently? Would you parent differently? Would you work differently? Would you stop saying yes so quickly? Would you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you? Would you stop chasing a version of success that keeps requiring self abandonment? The third handle: choose one small act of ownership this week. Not a dramatic overhaul, not quitting your job tomorrow, not blowing up your life. One small act of ownership. Maybe you take a walk without turning it into fitness content. Maybe you say no to something you usually say yes to out of guilt. Maybe you spend 1 hour doing something that does not have to be productive. Maybe you mute an account that keeps triggering comparison. Maybe you admit to yourself, I don't actually want what I've been pretending to want. Maybe you have one honest conversation. Maybe you stop asking 10 people for permission to trust what you already know. Small acts of ownership rebuild the internal compass, because the goal is not to become reckless. The goal is to become honest. So let's return to Naomi. She's still in the car, keys in her hand, phone face down, sitting in the quiet. And for the first time in a long time, she doesn't rush to numb the question. She doesn't turn on a podcast. She doesn't scroll. She doesn't text somebody. She doesn't immediately distract herself. She lets the question sit there. Do I actually want this? And at first, that question feels threatening, because if the answer is no, then what? What does she do with the job, the expectations, the identity, the people who are proud of her, the bills, the image, the years she already spent building this version of life? But then another thought comes, a gentler thought, a truer thought. She doesn't have to destroy her life to examine it. She doesn't have to make one dramatic decision tonight. She doesn't have to have every answer immediately. She just has to stop lying to herself. That's where redesign begins. Not with chaos, not with performance, not with pretending to be fearless, but with honesty. The honest admission. Some of what I built was survival. Some of what I chased was approval. Some of what I called ambition was fear. Some of what I wanted was never mine. And the truth doesn't have to crush her. It can free her, because the life you built may not be fully yours, but the next decision can be. The next boundary can be. The next honest conversation can be. The next goal can be. The next season can be. Maybe that's what growth really looks like. Not becoming more impressive, but becoming less borrowed, less edited, less outsourced, less controlled by invisible audiences, less addicted to approval, less committed to scripts that were written before you knew you had a voice. Maybe the question is not, how do I become successful? Maybe the better question is, what kind of success can I live inside without abandoning myself? Because there is a kind of achievement that costs too much. There is a kind of ambition that is really anxiety wearing a nice outfit. There is a kind of success that looks like freedom to everybody else, but feels like captivity to the person living it. And there is a kind of life that may look less impressive from the outside, but feels more honest on the inside. That is the life worth designing. So this week, don't just ask what you're chasing. Ask who taught you to chase it. Ask what it costs you to keep chasing it. Ask whether the applause is worth the disconnection. Ask whether the life you're building has room for the person you actually are. Because the goal is not to destroy everything you've built. The goal is to finally take ownership of the blueprint. You're not behind because you're asking deeper questions. You're not ungrateful because success doesn't feel the way you thought it would. You're not broken because achievement didn't heal what survival taught you to chase. You may just be waking up. And waking up can feel like discomfort before it feels like freedom. Until next time, stop drifting and start designing. Truth Be Told Project. I'll see you later. Peace.